Welcome to a deep dive into the side of the idol world that the cameras rarely capture in high definition. We see the glitz, the global stadium tours, and the flawless choreography that moves like a single heartbeat. But behind the soul-stirring high notes and the charismatic smiles of BTS lies a history written in sweat, resilience, and more often than we'd like to admit, physical pain. Being the biggest act on the planet isn't just about trophies. It's about enduring the grueling demands of a performance standard that pushes the human body to its absolute limits. Have you ever wondered what happens when the stage lights dim and the adrenaline fades? What is the true cost of a perfect all-kill when your joints are screaming for mercy? Today, we aren't just looking at highlights. We are peeling back the curtain on the scars that define their journey. From hidden bandages to emergency room visits mid-tour, these are stories of grit that will change the way you see every dance move. Are you ready to see the blood and tears behind the purple ocean? Who was the member who performed through a literal hole in his leg and who nearly lost his career before it even began due to a silent injury? Let's uncover the heavy price of greatness as we count down 7 injuries suffered by BTS members that prove they are more than just idols, they are warriors. Stay tuned, because the reality of these moments is more intense than any music video you've ever seen. Number 7. Jungkook, the London Tragedy. A silent tear behind the curtain. The year was 2018, and the world was officially under the spell of the Love Yourself World Tour. BTS was headlining the O2 Arena in London, a legendary venue that every artist dreams of conquering. But just hours before the curtain rose, disaster struck in the most mundane way possible. While warming up in the dressing room, the group's golden maknae Jungkook collided with some floor furniture, resulting in a deep, gruesome gash on his heel. The injury was severe enough that medical staff explicitly forbade him from dancing, fearing that any pressure on the wound would cause it to rip further, leading to permanent tissue damage or infection. For a performer like Jungkook, whose entire identity is rooted in his explosive athleticism and precision on stage, this wasn't just a physical injury, it was a psychological blow. As the lights went up and the roaring cheers of thousands filled the arena, Jungkook didn't walk out to his usual position. Instead, he was wheeled out on a stool. The contrast was heart-wrenching. While the other 6 members executed the high-octane choreography of Idol, Jungkook sat relegated to the side, his foot bandaged, his body vibrating with the phantom movements of a dance he knew by heart, but couldn't perform. The emotional weight of the moment hit him during the song Anpanman. As he watched his brothers give their all, the frustration and the perceived failure to give the fans his best version culminated in a rare public breakdown. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed, his shoulders shaking as the reality of his vulnerability crashed down. This moment remains one of the most raw and unfiltered glimpses into the idol life, showing that even the golden maknae is made of flesh and bone. It highlighted the terrifying reality that one wrong step, one minor accident, can strip an artist of their power in an instant. The fans, of course, chanted his name until the rafters shook, reminding him that he was loved for his soul, not just his footwork. But for Jungkook, that night in London became a permanent scar of resilience, a reminder that the stage is a privilege that can be threatened by a single moment of bad luck. It forces us to ask, how much of their self-worth is tied to a performance, and at what point does the pressure to be perfect become a burden too heavy to carry? This was the night the maknae grew up in the eyes of the world, proving that even while sitting down, his presence could fill an entire stadium, though the pain in his eyes told a much darker story of the physical toll of global stardom. Number 6. Suga, the hidden agony, a shoulder held together by secrets. For nearly a decade, Min Yoongi lived a double life that would have broken a lesser person. To the world, he was the fierce, unshakable rapper of BTS, but behind the scenes he was a man functioning with a shoulder that was essentially a ticking time bomb. This story doesn't start on a grand stage, but on the cold, unforgiving streets of Seoul during his trainee days. To make ends meet while chasing a dream that felt light years away, Suga worked as a delivery driver. One rainy night, the universe shifted. He was struck by a car in a hit-and-run accident, leaving him with a shattered shoulder and a body in shock. Fearing he would be kicked out of Big Hit if the company knew he was working an outside job, Suga kept the injury a secret, burying the pain under layers of oversized hoodies and sheer willpower. He debuted, he toured, and he performed some of the most complex choreographies in K-pop history, while his labrum was literally torn to shreds. Can you imagine the sheer mental fortitude required to execute the aggressive movements of Fire or Not Today, when every rotation of your arm feels like a hot knife slicing through muscle? For years, fans noticed him clutching his shoulder or avoiding certain high-reach movements, but he never complained. He used injections, physical therapy, and bracing just to get through 3-hour concerts. However, the human body has a breaking point. By 2020, during the Map of the Soul era, the pain became a constant shadow that affected his daily life. He couldn't even lift a glass of water without wincing. Finally, in a move that shocked the global fandom, he disappeared from the spotlight to undergo major shoulder surgery. For months, BTS performed as 6, leaving an empty space in their formations that felt like a gaping wound. This wasn't just a medical procedure, it was the culmination of a 9-year battle against a ghost from his past. Suga's injury is a haunting testament to the grit culture of the idol industry, where the show must go on regardless of the physical cost. It makes you wonder, how many other idols are currently performing through silent injuries just to keep the dream alive? When he finally returned to the stage, the sight of him moving his arm freely was more than just a comeback. It was a victory over a trauma that had haunted him since before the world knew his name. It was a reminder that even the strongest walls have cracks, and sometimes, the bravest thing an idol can do is admit they are broken, so they can finally heal. Number 5. Jimin. The invisible cracks, a body pushed beyond the breaking point. If there is one member who embodies the phrase perfection at any cost, it is Park Jimin. Known for his ethereal contemporary dance style and a stage presence that borders on the supernatural, Jimin's body has often paid the ultimate price for his artistry. We're taking it back to the Wings and Love Yourself eras, a time when BTS was skyrocketing to a level of fame that demanded nothing short of absolute physical divinity. But behind those fluid, gravity-defying leaps, Jimin was battling a chronic, debilitating condition involving severe muscle spasms and neck stiffness that would frequently lock his entire upper body. The most terrifying moment came during the Macau leg of the Wings tour in 2017. Imagine the scene, thousands of fans screaming, the bass thumping through the floor. But backstage, Jimin is collapsed, unable to even hold his head up. The medical report was grim, extreme cramping, and muscle paralysis triggered by exhaustion and the repetitive strain of their high-intensity choreography. Doctors issued a stern warning. If he stepped on that stage to dance, he risked permanent nerve damage or a spinal injury that could end his career forever. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? A man whose life is defined by movement, facing the prospect of being frozen in place. Against his own burning desire to perform, he was forced to sit out of the choreography, watching from the sidelines as the black swan of the group was grounded by his own muscles. This wasn't a one-time fluke. The neck and back issues followed him for years, famously flaring up again in London during the Graham Norton show appearance, where he had to be rushed to the doctor while his members performed without him. The physical toll on Jimin is a reflection of his own psychological intensity. He is his own harshest critic, often skipping meals or practicing until dawn to master a single transition. This injury serves as a somber education on the invisible dangers of the industry. Not all injuries come from a fall or a crash. Some are the result of a slow, agonizing erosion of the body caused by the relentless pursuit of an impossible standard. When you watch Jimin spin with such grace, you aren't just seeing talent, you're seeing a man who has learned to negotiate with constant pain. It raises the haunting question, where is the line between passion and self-destruction? How many times can a person break themselves for the sake of a perfect 4-minute performance? Jimin's journey is a masterclass in resilience, but it's also a stark reminder that even the most beautiful dance can be a battleground for survival. Number 4. RM. The hidden fracture. Leading through the fire of agony. When we think of Kim Namjoon, we think of the unshakable leader, the philosopher, the giant who carries the weight of BTS's global reputation on his broad shoulders. But during the Wings tour in 2017, specifically during the Sapporo stops in Japan, the leader's strength was tested in a way that most fans didn't realize until much later. Imagine the sheer willpower required to front a world-class group, while a bone in your foot is literally cracking under the pressure. RM was diagnosed with a stress fracture in his foot, an injury that usually sidelines athletes for weeks, requiring total immobilization. But for RM, walking away wasn't an option. The Wings tour was a pivotal moment in their ascent to the throne, and the choreography for songs like Not Today was notoriously punishing, requiring heavy stomping and explosive lateral movements. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Medical professionals were adamant that he should not perform, as a stress fracture can easily turn into a complete break that requires surgery and months of rehabilitation. Yet Namjoon chose a middle ground that was arguably more painful. He performed the concert but with modified movements, standing as a pillar of strength, while his foot sent jolts of white-hot pain up his leg with every shift in weight. He didn't just stand there. He commanded the stage, his face a mask of professional composure, hiding the fact that every step felt like treading on broken glass. This injury is a deep dive into the psychological burden of leadership. If the leader falls, does the group waver? Namjoon felt that responsibility intensely. He chose to endure the physical fire to ensure the wings of his team didn't clip mid-flight. The reality of a stress fracture is that it's a silent, nagging injury. It's not a sudden snap, but a slow, agonizing realization that your body is failing you from the inside out due to sheer overwork. It's the ultimate edutainment lesson in the cost of success. The more you run toward your dreams, the more the ground pushes back. Namjoon's fracture was a physical manifestation of the burnout that was threatening the group during their most intense years of growth. It forces us to look at the leader of the world's biggest band and ask, who supports the man who supports everyone else? Watching him now, it's easy to forget that there were nights where he could barely limp to the dressing room, only to turn around and smile for the army moments later. This was the grit of a leader who refused to let a broken bone break the momentum of a revolution. Number 3. Jin. The Kitchen Nightmare, a severed connection to the stage. Life has a funny, albeit cruel, way of reminding us that danger doesn't just lurk in high-octane stadium choreography. Sometimes, it's waiting in the silence of your own home. In March 2022, just as BTS was preparing for their massive Permission to Dance on Stage Las Vegas residency, the group's eldest member, Jin, faced a freak accident that nearly cost him the full use of his hand. While performing routine daily activities at home, specifically in the kitchen, Jin severely injured his left index finger. This wasn't just a small cut or a bruise. The impact was so deep that he partially severed the tendons in his finger, requiring immediate emergency surgery to reattach the delicate tissues. For a musician, your hands are your lifeblood. And for Kim Seokjin, who had been honing his guitar skills and preparing for a series of high-stakes global performances, this was a nightmare scenario. The surgery was successful, but the recovery process was a grueling exercise in frustration and restraint. When the group flew to Las Vegas for the Grammy Awards and their sold-out stadium shows, Jin appeared with a massive heavy cast enveloping his hand, looking like a stark contrast to his pristine, worldwide handsome aesthetic. The most heartbreaking part? The medical orders were absolute. He could not put any strain on the hand, or the stitches would pop, leading to permanent loss of mobility. Imagine being on one of the world's most prestigious stages, the Grammys, performing Butter in a high-stakes heist-themed routine while having to hide your injured hand or keep it perfectly still while your body wants to react to the rhythm. During the concerts, Jin had to perform most of the set sitting on a stool or standing apart from the main dance formations to avoid any accidental collisions with the other members. You could see the internal struggle in his eyes, the longing to jump into the fray, to join the dance line he had worked so hard to keep up with over the years. This injury provides a sobering look at the vulnerability of an artist's tools. One moment of domestic misfortune can jeopardize months of preparation and the collective flow of a 7-man team. It reminds us that behind the superhuman idol persona is a human being subject to the same clumsy accidents as the rest of us, yet they have to heal in the glaring eyes of millions. Jin's resilience during this period was quiet but profound. He chose to be present, to sing his heart out even when his body was locked in a protective cast, proving that his voice and his presence were more than enough to command a stadium, even when he couldn't even clap his hands. It makes you think, how much of their perfect image is a fragile construct that can be shattered by something as simple as a kitchen knife? Number 2. V. The leg that refused to move, a soul trapped in a chair. The date was the 24th of October 2021, and the world was buzzing for the Permission to Dance on Stage online concert. This was supposed to be a triumphant moment, a grand spectacle broadcast to millions of homes across the globe. But just one day before the massive production, during a final rehearsal that should have been routine, Kim Tae-hyung, the man known for his feline grace and magnetic stage presence, felt a sudden, sharp pain shoot through his calf. The diagnosis was swift and devastating. Extreme calf muscle strain. The doctors didn't just suggest rest, they strictly prohibited him from any vigorous movement, fearing a full muscle tear that could lead to a long-term disability. For V, a performer who communicates through every fiber of his being, this was like being told to paint a masterpiece with his hands tied behind his back. When the concert began, the visual was jarring. There sat V, positioned in a luxurious armchair to the side of the stage, looking like a captive king. While the other members were jumping, sliding, and executing the high-energy footwork of DNA and Dynamite, V was forced to remain stationary. The emotional toll was visible in every close-up shot. You could see it in the way his eyes followed his brother's, his torso leaning instinctively toward the choreography, his fingers twitching to the beat of a dance. His body was forbidden from joining. This injury highlights a different kind of top-list agony, the mental torture of being physically present but artistically sidelined. V's calf injury wasn't just about a muscle, it was about the crushing weight of disappointment, feeling like he was letting down the army who had waited months to see him. In his own words during the concert, he admitted to feeling embarrassed and upset, emotions that no idol should have to feel while they are literally injured. This moment gives us a deep educational look into the biomechanics of K-pop. The sheer amount of jumping and sudden stops in their routines puts a level of pressure on the lower limbs that is comparable to professional soccer players or Olympic gymnasts. V's throne during that concert became a symbol of the fragile balance between human ambition and physical limits. It forces us to reflect. How do you maintain the persona of a global superstar when your own leg refuses to carry you? Watching him perform Blue and Gray while seated, his voice dripping with an even deeper level of melancholy than usual, proved that his artistry isn't just in his feet, it's in the soul that refuses to be silenced, even when the body is broken. It was a masterclass in emotional resilience, showing that a true performer can command an entire stadium's energy without moving a single inch. Number 1. J-Hope. The collapse in the dark, the heart of the team on the edge of extinction. When we think of J-Hope, we think of Sunshine, the man who is literally made of rhythm, the dance captain who never misses a beat and keeps the energy of BTS at a constant boiling point. But there is a dark, terrifying side to being the main dancer that fans rarely get to see until the cameras catch a glimpse of the aftermath. We're going back to the Burn the Stage era, specifically the 2017 trilogy episode 3, The Wings Tour in Chile. The atmosphere in Santiago was electric, the heat was suffocating, and the setlist was a relentless gauntlet of high-intensity performances. J-Hope, being the perfectionist he is, was pushing himself at 200% capacity. But behind that bright smile and the flawless execution of Boy Meets Evil, a dance that requires extreme core strength and flexibility, his body was shutting down. The combination of the high altitude, the extreme humidity of the packed arena, and the sheer physical exhaustion of back-to-back world tours led to a medical emergency that nearly stopped the show. In the raw documentary footage, we see the moment the lights go dark. Jung Ho-seok, the man who is supposed to be invincible, collapses. He is carried backstage by staff, his face pale, his breath coming in ragged, terrifying gasps. He was suffering from severe heat exhaustion and dehydration, a state where the internal organs begin to struggle under the lack of oxygen and fluids. Watching the staff desperately fan him and press cold cloths to his skin while he lay semi-conscious on a couch is a haunting edutainment lesson in the physiological cost of K-pop stardom. This wasn't just a sprain or a cut, this was a total systemic failure of the body. The most chilling part? Within minutes of being barely able to open his eyes, the Sunshine persona clicked back on. He forced himself upright, took a few sips of water, and despite the protests of those around him, he went back out onto that stage to finish the concert. Why? Because to J-Hope, the stage is a sacred duty, and his injury, this complete physical collapse, was something he felt he had to conquer for the sake of the team and the fans. This is the ultimate peak of our list, because it represents the most dangerous injury of all, the one where you push past your human limits until there is nothing left. It forces us to ask the most uncomfortable question in the fandom. At what point does our demand for perfection become a threat to their very lives? J-Hope's collapse in Chile remains a definitive moment in BTS history, a reminder that the most energetic member is often the one carrying the heaviest physical burden, masking a world of pain with a smile that the world depends on. It was the night the hope of the group almost flickered out, proving that even the brightest stars are fueled by a fire that can eventually consume them if they aren't careful.